So, I don't know, in your own words, somebody define just ethics. What does ethics mean?
To me, it's how you treat another individual, be it business, be it personal. I would add character even as part of that.
Sure.
Integrity.
Sorry?
Integrity.
Integrity. Okay, good. Guidelines, yeah. Yeah, these are all good. I think you're all right in a different shade of meaning. Ethics, really, if you define the term, all it means is the study of right and wrong. Everything you guys said pointed towards that idea. But simply speaking, that's what ethics is. It's a study of right and wrong. It's a study of whether right and wrong exists. And if it does exist, it's a study of what is right and what is wrong. It's a really interesting field to go into because it's something that, it's not just like a Christian thing that we worry about. It's something that secular philosophers for years, thousands of years, have fought over that question. The question of morality, the question of ethics. So, again, this is all a question. Are there such things as good and evil? And if there are such things as good and evil, right and wrong, what are they? So, according to you guys, what is what kind of things are good? What is good? Truthfulness. Great. Truthfulness is good. Helping others. Sure.
Say loving mankind in general.
Kindness.
Or humans, kindness.
Yeah. What else is good? Only these three things are good. What's good?
Reproduction.
Reproduction. That's good. You don't want the human race to die out, right? What's good? What things are good or right?
God ordained.
Anything God ordained. That's vague, but I think it's true.
Fruits of the Spirit, right?
Yes.
All the fruits.
All the fruits of the Spirit. Say, fruits of the Spirit. Thoughts. Yeah, okay. This stuff's good.
I look at it as God loves us and doesn't want us doing things that are going to be harmful to us.
Yeah.
In the long run, things that we tend to look at the short, what's just in front of us, to judge that. And I think that, the long term is what God's looking at.
Yeah, I think so too. And this whole idea right here, we're going to go at, or we're going to get to this concept right here near the end of what we're talking about tonight. But, okay, what is related to this? Section these off. How about evil? What is evil? What is wrong? Same kind of question. Lying.
Deception.
Sure. Lying is wrong. Murder is wrong.
I know so much fits into the one.
Just go ahead, anything.
Rudeness,
Thievery.
Thievery,
hurting other people.
Is it just selfishness?
hurting others, selfishness, that's a real big one. That kind of covers a lot of these things here pretty quickly. This stuff is wrong, this stuff is evil. Okay, so let's erase our answers. Let's actually erase the whole board real quick. That's what we think is right and we think is wrong, but we're all sitting here with, chances are, everyone in this room, we all have a pretty similar worldview, right? So we're probably going to agree on most things. What about, again, we're talking about morality. What about what our society thinks is right and wrong? What does our society think is right and wrong? Some of the things we just said fall into that category, right?
Yeah.
Society thinks murder is wrong. Society, generally speaking, is what about lying? Is lying something considered to be not a good thing?
I think that's a gray area.
Isn't it? Don't lie unless you can get ahead using a
So
lie.
they're getting further away from it.
Okay, what else? In the society, what does society consider to be wrong? Don't do that. A while back you might have put adultery,
Yeah.
that's wrong. But even today it's kind of like a, well, if you weren't happy,
Everyone has their own story, right?
seek your own happiness, right? Life, love, pursuit of happiness, liberty. What does society think is wrong? Area, you know,
Sharing,
stealing works, shouldn't steal.
How about the getting into conversation about politics? Religion and.
Don't
what's the other
share
one?
your opinion
Yeah.
unless, it's more like, don't share your opinion with me. I can share my opinion with you, that's fine.
Yeah, and if you do share your opinion, then you're persecuting me.
Yeah, right? It's all about social justice today. And social justice is whatever I'm offended about. Okay, well, what else does society think is wrong? We've got to have a couple more ideas here. What is generally, like, universally in the society that is wrong? You can't find something universally, but close to.
Almost being wealthy and not giving to everybody.
Greed. Nobody likes a greedy person, but nobody likes sharing. So, okay, well, let's try something else. Society, that's wrong. And what about what is right in society? What is good in
Whatever
society?
makes you feel good.
Okay, yeah. Feeling good. Feeling good. How about following your heart?
Charitable to others.
What was that?
Charitable to others.
Being charitable. You know what's
Society.
interesting is, I don't know anybody that hates a charitable person. Being charitable, even today, it's like, all right, good on you. So that's a good one. What else is right?
Taking care, this kind of falls into charitable, taking care of people.
Taking care of people. People, even in the society, people consider those who take care of others doing good, right?
Bringing your children up right.
Others, or taking care of family, should probably do that, unless it's an inconvenience.
Becoming successful.
Yeah. Success is right. That's the American dream, right? Capitalism. It's not getting economic views. Okay, well, what's interesting is when you talk about like us in this room, we can say, oh, this is right, this is right, this is right. And for the most part, hello. For the most part, we would all agree on stuff. It's pretty easy to find a lot of stuff we agree with. But when you go into what the whole society agrees with, it gets really kind of touchy. Like, okay, I guess society doesn't really view that as being right or wrong anymore. I guess that's a gray area now. He said, what about lying? I said, okay, lying is a gray area. We can't even say with confidence that lying is wrong in society. Could be right, maybe. Okay. So as far as the society goes, it's really interesting. We talked about this before. When you've taken the concept of the value of the individual out of the picture, really quickly you lose your course for what is right and wrong. Real quick. I once read a book in which the author, he said he had a conversation with somebody that insisted that nothing that they did was wrong. Like, nothing I do is wrong. He said, what do you mean? So I just do what I feel like doing, and that can't be wrong. I'm just doing what I feel like doing. It's not wrong. It's right for me. And so nothing I do is wrong. And the guy said, well, you know what I feel like doing right now? He said, what? I feel like hitting you in the face. Is that wrong? And the guy thought about it. Because first he wanted to say, yeah, well, that's wrong. But he couldn't quite say it because the guy who wanted to hit him was just following what he felt like doing. And it couldn't be wrong if he just felt like doing it. But it felt wrong to him because he was going to be hit in the face, right? The guy had no answer because he had no intellectual basis from which to evaluate the question of, like, is that right or is that right? Or is this wrong? Or he had no basis for it. His view, do whatever you want. And that's right. But pretty quickly you start running into walls. Without a basis, you have a really hard time with morality. For the Christian, that basis is the value of the individual. Pretty much every law in regard to how people relate to each other comes out of the value of the individual. Take that out of the picture, it gets really messy really fast. And this is, I think, the state that we find ourselves in this nation. Do you agree? So again, we talked about value, we talked about taking God out of the picture, taking the spiritual side out of the picture, and things get tough. So, again, this is a point I made last week, but man, you have the physical, we have bodies, and we exist in a physical realm, right? This is physical. And then you have spiritual, like we're more than just bodies, right? We have a soul, there's something deeper to us than just the physical husk of a body. But in our culture right now, we've taken the spiritual out. Like we are just the physical whatever. And so physical, we're just made of atoms, ultimately. This is what we're made of. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that didn't hit you.
See it in the corner of my eye.
Keep that down here. Throw that away.
They're just trying to see if she's paying attention.
At least it wasn't a piece of wood.
No, it's foam. That still would have been really sad. If you take the spiritual out of the equation, which is what we've done, which is what modern science has done, well, there's no evidence of the spiritual and therefore it doesn't exist. That's bad science, by the way. It's not how science works. Scientific method cannot verify something that cannot be verified with a scientific method. Anyway, different thing. Hopefully we'll go there eventually. If you take the spiritual out, you're just physical, and if you're just physical, ultimately you're just atoms. That's what we are. We're just atoms. What else is just atoms? Everything. Everything is just atoms. So, people are just atoms. Garbage is just atoms. Paper cups are just atoms. So, if you lie to a paper cup, is it wrong? No, it's a paper cup, right? It's just a bunch of atoms. If you lie to some garbage, is it wrong? No. If you lie to an animal, is it wrong? I don't think so. If you lie to a person, is it wrong? No, it's not. If you smash a paper cup, smash. Is it wrong?
As long as you recycle it.
That's another thing that's right in this culture.
Right.
Recycle.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Smash a paper cup, you're not going to go to prison. No big deal. Why? It's just atoms. It's just stuff. If you smash some garbage, is it wrong? No, it's just atoms. If you smash a people, is it wrong? Now, we're really quickly, we have a heritage, this nation does, a heritage, okay? That's all based in the Christian value of man. But progressively, we've gotten further and further away from that. And it makes me wonder how long until this is the same as this and this. Because we already see that in a lot of cases. Because again, if you take the spirit out of the picture, you take the value of man out of the picture, you take God out of the picture, morality gets really messy, really quick. And some of the smarter folks who try to think things through, they've come to this conclusion. There was a Frenchman named Marquis de Sade who lived in the 1700s. He was a French philosopher. He studied ethics, and he came to the conclusion what we just talked about. That we're all just physical. That's it. And he believed. He said, "You're just physical, so you can morally do whatever you're able to do. If you are able to do it, you can do it, and that's just the way it is." And he actually said this, and this is kind of scary. He said, "As nature has made us, the men, stronger, we can do whatever we want with the women." And that's just the way it is, because that's the way nature is. We're all just atoms, we're all just physical, there's no higher power to hold us accountable. We're stronger by nature, and we can do whatever we want. Morality, in his view, doesn't mean anything. He can say, you can morally do this if you want to, but really it doesn't mean anything, because there is no morality. Accept everything that occurs as being right. And you take spiritual out of the equation, you take the deeper side of man out of the equation, and that's the logical conclusion. You run into it. Just the physical. But I think it's probably fair to say that most people have enough common sense to realize that this doesn't work in reality, right? You probably haven't met many people or any people that hold to that view, like, whatever, we're all just atoms and we can do whatever we want. We talked about last week how if you follow these things out to the conclusions, you realize you have no value, you have no purpose, and there is no morality. But most people, they feel like they should be valuable. Like they feel like there's something more, something deeper. We talked about that Japanese poet who was told by the Zen master. He said, everything, the earth is as the dew. The pain you're feeling over the loss of your wife and your children is nothing. It's passing, it's imaginary, it's illusory. Isa, he starts writing, the world is as dew, and yet, because he feels something deeper. He feels that these things are valuable, he feels that these things are real. I think just like we feel deep inside us that there's value, I think we feel deep inside us that there are such things as right and wrong. I don't think I've met, aside from on the internet, I've met a lot of crazy people on the internet, because once you're anonymous, you can express whatever crazy views you want, and probably nobody's going to find you. But as far as real life conversations, I've never met anybody that completely denies any kind of morality, or any kind of right and wrong. I think people, they sense that there are such things as right and wrong. They look at certain things that happen, and they say, that feels wrong to me. I do think to a degree, what's right and wrong is written on our hearts. That's a biblical concept, Romans. But I think most people sense that there's some sort of system of standards, something that is truly right and truly wrong. And I really think that just like people grasp for straws to find a way to explain the fact that they're a valuable, unique individual, people do the same thing with the concept of morality. You guys ever heard of B.F. Skinner? B.F. Skinner was a famous behavioral psychologist from some years back. And he tried to find morality, a system of morality. He denied God, he denied the existence of a greater power, but he recognized that there needed to be some kind of system of morality, or else we couldn't function well. So he tried to find morality by attaching it to the survival of the human race. Like, whatever is good is that which will lead to the survival of the human race. And that's the end of it. Right and wrong is based on survival. He said, he went a little far, he said that people should not allow, we, the intelligent ones, cannot allow people to do anything that would destroy the human race or work towards the destruction of the human race. And that is what is right and that's what's wrong. He said society must not let people have the privilege of freedom, because he says people are using that freedom to destroy the whole human race. Right? In some cases he's kind of right. People use their freedom to do terrible, terrible things. You can look on the news today and watch how people are using their freedom to destroy parts of the human race. But he said people shouldn't be allowed to have freedom because they're destroying the human race. And destroying the human race is and keeping the human race alive is the ultimate good. And therefore we have to do everything in our power to keep it from dying out. That is morality. What's interesting is he can't explain why it would be a bad thing if the human race was destroyed. Because again, in his view, we're all just physical creatures. We're all atoms. We're the result of an accident, like a cosmic accident. We just came into being somehow. For him, he says, well, this is the highest good, is maintaining the survival of the human race. He can't explain why is a problem. And he recognizes that he can't explain why. He recognizes the absurdity of his claim. He says this, there's no good reason why you should be concerned with the destruction of the human race. Like, there's no good reason why you should be concerned. But if your culture has not somehow convinced you that there is a good reason, so much the worse for your culture. You get that? He's like, I can't think of any good reason why this should be that important. But if your culture hasn't convinced you that it's important, your culture's going to suffer, which I guess technically is true, right? Again, he's trying to find some kind of way to explain morality, and it ends up being an arbitrary reason. He describes it as something. Because again, if it's purposeless evolutionary chance that resulted in us existing, as Skinner believed, there's no logical reason to worry about our survival. Our dying out would just be an accident fixing itself. It'd be a wiping out of an already meaningless existence. That'd be all there is to it. The accident is making itself right. Now what's cool is, we're not cursed to live a meaningless existence. We have a really cool purpose, every single one of us. We talked about this last week, and God created us for the purpose of relationship. But once again, if you take God out of the picture, what's right and wrong gets really hard to figure out. So, in terms of Western thought, and what I mean by Western thought is not just in Western places. You can break it down into Eastern religion and Western thought as far as those things that majorly come against Christianity. As far as Western thought goes, let's just have some back and forth here. What are some ways that people try to find morality? Some worldviews people come up with. Convenience. So just grab onto something to not have to worry about the question. What you're saying?
Yeah, just whatever is presented to you in the moment, maybe whatever is best at that moment.
Yeah, I think you could call that one
To justify whatever.
don't care. I'm too busy living my life to be worried about whether it's a purposeful existence. Right? I don't want to worry about that. Worrying about that is depressing. Ultimately, the end of these, in my opinion, the end of Western evolutionary thought is despair. There's nothing else but despair as the end, as the end conclusion. And I do want to go there with another teaching. But don't care is a big one, because people just like to close their eyes and go about their lives. But as far as, what about other worldviews, other philosophies or perspectives, things that people try to explain what's right and wrong with?
I think if it feels right, that's what I hear a lot, it feels right for you, it's right.
What feels right? Right or wrong?
Like what your heart tells you.
Yeah, it's Disney syndrome.
Yeah.
Let me see. You could call this hedonism. That's what the strict philosophical perspective is called. And essentially it means anything that feels good is right. Anything that feels bad is wrong. And that is the end of morality. Therefore, the highest good in your life is seeking feeling good. And what is the ultimate wickedness is feeling bad. So, don't feel bad. And a lot of areas in our society, I think this is huge. I don't want to do it. It feels bad. That's wrong. Don't make me feel bad. I want to feel good.
It's even come into Christian circles.
Yeah. Yeah, it really has. I think this may be one of the most pervasive worldviews that's come into our culture in the last 50 years. Now, what's the problem with, we already know what the problem with don't care is, because it's just, what's the problem with whatever feels right is right, whatever feels good is right? What's the problem with hedonism? Does it work? Why not?
Because what feels right for you and what feels right for me are two very
Yeah, you know, I feel like a punch in the face. That makes me feel good. Makes me feel good to murder people.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, that's not a hypothetical situation. There are people out there who, they get their kicks by killing people. Do the people themselves get their kicks by being killed? Nope. Have you guys ever heard of the hedonistic paradox? The hedonistic paradox, this is a philosophical phenomenon. Because this is something that has been experienced by a lot of hedonists. They were the ones who first noticed this. The hedonistic paradox states that the person who seeks ultimate pleasure is never going to get it. And the person, in other words, whenever you get to that point of ultimate pleasure, if such a thing exists, suddenly your reason for living is gone, right? If you're living for the big high. First of all, the question is, can you get there? And I don't know anyone who has ever gotten there. Ultimate pleasure. The second problem is you end up inevitably feeling pain. Like you end up inevitably suffering in a life that is lived solely to experience pleasure. There's a suffering involved. If you pursue this and you get it, suddenly you've lost your reason for life. If you pursue it and you can't get there, you experience suffering from not being able to get your reason for life. Does that make sense? It's a lose-lose every single time. And this isn't one of the people like, well, here's the reason why hedonism is wrong. This is something that the hedonist said. This is a problem. The hedonistic paradox is really interesting. You should look it up sometime. There's a Wikipedia entry. So I'm not just making this up. Not that Wikipedia is the authority. You can make up anything on Wikipedia. It's pretty interesting. So hedonism, this is really big in our culture. But really there's, as far as a basis for morality, it's pretty hollow. You agree? Okay, what else? How else do people try to find a basis for what is right and wrong?
I think people that are ignorant towards like Christianity, they try to manipulate what they do know about it to make like an excuse about what they do consider as right.
Yeah. And I think people who are like on the borderline of Christianity, and even some people who are like churchgoers, do this. They take what they do know, and they twist it, or they pick little parts of it out here and there, and say, well, this is good. They use it as an enabling device, if you will. So, ultimately, those people, what are they concerned with? They're concerned with feeling good and doing whatever it takes to justify their seeking of it, right? That's good. They're definitely enablers or justifiers.
I was thinking majority rules,
That's a good one. Majority rule. What's another word for this? What's another word for majority rule?
Democracy.
Democracy. Democracy, that's what we are in America, right? Wrong.
We'd like to think so.
Well, in America, we are a representative republic. That's another thing. Democracy. Okay, so yeah, it's whatever the majority wants, that is what is right. We do this a lot. In a lot of countries, that's how, that's what makes the laws, that's what makes the standards for what the majority believes. What's the problem with the majority consensus view?
Most of them are like the first two.
The problem is, most of the people really care about this, right? So let's say you've got 51% who are ignorant and only care about self-satisfaction. How are they going to vote? Whatever gets them what they want. It's me what I want. You guys ever heard of the, I watched a video once. Maybe I shouldn't go here. I've seen a lot of cases in a lot of different countries and studies done where there are a lot of people who the only thing they care about, and I think this is becoming more and more the case in our nation, in terms of voting, in terms of the issues, the only issue they care about is which candidate is going to give me the most stuff. Which candidate is going to give me the most write-offs, the most government aid, the most stuff. This is not a statement of my political standpoint, because we're not going to go here right now. There was a video that was circulating before the election a few years back, where there was an interview down on the streets where these people who were they were in a more difficult situation financially. They were saying, you've got to vote for Obama because he gave us cell phones. Like we got cell phones. We got our Obama phones, and we got all this extra stuff. That's why I'm voting for him. But so there wasn't any other consideration at all. There was the fact that I got a cell phone from him. Now again, this is not a political statement, but I think this is where we find a lot of where our nation is at. People want, okay, who's going to give me the most stuff? That's what I care about. There's no concern for the higher good. There's no concern for the good of our nation, for what works long term. People want immediate gratification. Is gratification a bad thing? No. Gratification is what makes life fun. Is the pursuit of gratification a bad thing? Not necessarily. Is the pursuit of this a bad thing? As your end all for your being? That's what that means. Ultimate pleasure means ultimate gratification. And this is what most people care about right now. So majority rule runs into some problems pretty quick. What else? There's some other ideas we can jump around here. And there's too many to get to in the end, right? There's just a lot. But I'm hoping to go into what you would call pluralism or relativism. Another night. But in the end, the concept of hedonism is going to be a subcategory of pluralism or relativism. Because in these cases, there could be many rights or many wrongs, depending. There is no one true right. There's no one true wrong. It's for me, for you, whatever. It's right for me. What's convenient is interesting. Because that is kind of a subcategory of this as well, but it could have its own term. You guys mind if I erase this part? The idea of convenience is interesting, because how about whatever is right is whatever works for me? Like whatever makes my life work, whatever's working for me is what is, oh, that's me. Good, I said this on purpose, because we're gonna take a break. I didn't give you guys a break last time. I meant to, sorry.
Hey, donuts.
We'll do this and then we'll break. You guys ever heard of this term? Pragmatism. Pragmatism means I'm going to do whatever works for me. If it works, it is right. Now, I mean, that could be anything from, you know, how to get into a house with a locked door to how to make my business succeed. Whether that means lying, manipulating, stealing, to whatever else. If it works for me, it's right for me. A lot of these are very closely linked, you'll notice. There's another one very similar to this called utilitarianism. This one's really interesting, and this is my favorite one to discuss. But we won't discuss it, because it's too in-depth. The bottom line behind utilitarianism is ultimately you are pursuing the highest good, the ultimate good, the best possible outcome. And whatever it takes to get there is what you do. That is good. It's okay. People talk about utilitarianism a lot when you talk about the atomic bomb. When the U.S. in World War II, they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. There's a lot of talk about that. If they had invaded Japan, the estimates were that literally like some 12 million people would be lost in trying to take Japan. So what do? Do you kill people with the bomb, or do you kill people with soldiers? Which one is going to result in the least amount of deaths overall? And whichever one is going to result in the least amount of deaths is what is right. It's a really interesting standpoint. It's going into a direction I don't want to go for tonight, because it's really, really detailed. If you want to talk to me about that one, I really enjoy it. Well, let's go ahead and take a break before we move into one more that we're going to dive into, and then move into Eastern religions. So, the doors over there are open if you want water. There's a water cooler out there, and there's the bathrooms are open and everything. So, break.
The small ones are like jellyfish, but I guess.
Clearly something's.
No, there's 391. I just tried out the small one, but you can like you can tell it when you want.
Yeah, I'm out of my calories. I don't have as much spare, so I'm not on that far.
Just like barely glazed plankton.
That looks good.
The covered ones are jelly foam.
These ones.
What?
The glaze, just the plain glaze.
Yeah.
Don't you?
What did you have to do to get your keyboard to work? Nothing. You just plug it in and work.
This is just another issue.
Oh, that's your real one. Yeah, it's your real one.
I never heard that problem.
I saw that.
Like the sound does work and.
You get like jelly in here.
Yeah, that's gonna.
I know, she had like garage.
Does it work before?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked before. I've used it before. I just haven't used it in quite some time.
Would you mind? And if
You
it
like
doesn't work-
donuts?
I'm scared. I was messing with it, but I felt bad about it.
Would you eat fruit or vegetables if you
Right,
want?
maybe it won't work.
Wait, can I?
Because I can't have meat either. Because it gives some gas.
Oh, that's not the right
I'm
one.
dairy because of meat.
Yeah, Rick
So,
just gave it to me like
I'm
that.
dairy and no dairy.
Yeah, that's the wrong
so
ad.
I think I'm gonna try it again.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wait, I need to table this.
At least grainy foods.
I was on the week.
Wait,
dairy
yeah.
for a while. It was quite by accident, actually, but I realized that dairy doesn't really bother me.
I say you steal their donut.
There's no more over here.
I'm just kidding.
Dairy doesn't bother me as much. I don't have sugar, like, but gluten.
Did you get Hershey 7?
No, I have fatigue.
It's fine.
Okay.
It is?
I
There's
get
no-
inflamed.
This side looks like it's like further out.
I was like,
Is it just
too.
white
Like, oh,
or
I
like
know.
processed? When I was a kid,
Yeah.
I have like whole grain, because even if I do wheat,
Is that the
Really?
right study?
that's such a bummer.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Sure,
get a
it
lot
has
of
words.
new choices. It's just hard for stuff like this. It's a
It's
lot easier to just go grab donuts than it is,
a good.
Yeah.
so it's kind of a
Yeah,
bummer.
I know, I find myself like, I snack on almonds all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what else
I can eat almonds.
Yeah. Or tortilla chips, which are one of my favorite things. Corn,
First
right?
thing
Like,
manage to
I
keep
can
it.
have that,
I didn't have
but
to buy one.
I should just have just like a sandwich or something,
Now, there's a bakery in Deland that has a gluten-free bread that's really good. Yeah, so I get it when I go over there. I visit over there sometimes, occasionally. So we go get bread.
Where is it?
In Deland. It's like 3 hours away.
Oh,
And I think you can order it online, but I'm sure it's a little more expensive. But I don't need.
It's like touchpad and
Yeah,
What
keyboard.
brand is it? Is it Udi's bread or is it?
It's there and they bake it there on site.
Oh yeah, that's good. Nice to have some sort of bread.
Yeah, I had a sandwich for the first time in
Yeah.
like a
Lovely.
while.
Oh gosh.
It was nice to have a sandwich.
I don't see it.
Bless you.
I know, I know.
Thank you. I can feel it coming.
Yeah.
Work the way I wanted to.
And you can't stop them.
No.
You can try, but.
You might just be best off searching for the problem on the internet. Everybody's had the problem you've had once before. Maybe.
Heck,
Sorry ahead of time when he like fusses and cries. I want to be in here, but like when he does it, I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna stop. Because sometimes he'll just stop, and then I come in, and then I just feel like it's so annoying to people. But when he does stop, I'm like, yes, I can he's in.
Oh my gosh.
Is it distracting? Too distracting, Nate?
Not too distracting.
Dinner at 8 days.
Because when he fusses, I'm like, okay, I'll take him out and bring him back in, and he
No.
seems to be, because he'll be fine out there, I'll bring him in, and he starts fussing again, I'm
I
like,
can't go there anymore.
he wasn't
I'm so
fussing,
full
just
out
went- but he's happy.
Yeah, but.
You
I
know,
didn't want to
you know.
I know.
Yeah.
Totally do. Last night at the Saturday night service, we had a really small group, and Bethany and Sandy was freaking out.
Like,
He was really
why?
freaking out,
Oh.
and he was really loud, and it was super hard
She didn't take him out?
really power through my points and like get through it. She didn't take him out, she just brought him to the back, and he was still like,
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
that was
no.
hard until he decided to quit.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Are the jelly filled ones good?
Kendra had like few of them, so did Kanan. So I think they're good, I guess. Kanan, did you like the jelly filled ones?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
God,
Pretty
yeah.
good, huh?
Good.
I'm not gonna
Eat
cheat.
one.
I'm not gonna
Raise
cheat
your
for something that's
calories
pretty
on
good.
something
It's on a
that's
Sunday.
good.
I'm gonna cheat on a Domino's pizza tonight.
Kanan,
There's
yesterday
some-
was cheat day is gonna be today, I think, because I really want Dairy Queen. And then today, after church, of course, it's like, it's cheat day. And I'm like, you said yesterday was a cheat day. You can't cheat day every
It's
day.
cheat weekend. I get like cheat meal, and it's usually on a day when I do a whole lot of like
This stuff.
a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah.
So at the end of this thing, we'll end like a marathon. I did Saturday night teaching, this morning teaching, and then tonight, so pizza. I mean, the pizza.
That's your gold medal.
Yeah.
Domino's pizza.
Cheat year.
Good for you. By the way, there's a really good gluten-free pizza called Against the Grain.
Oh,
They
really?
sell it at Publix.
Domino's.
Domino's has gluten-free pizza. It's actually.
But somebody told me it wasn't as good as this that we can get at the store, so I don't know.
It definitely isn't as good as the real Domino's that I like.
Yeah.
I feel terrible.
Because for a while I was doing gluten free for like a month.
Yeah.
I remember everyone would get their fat donuts and it only came with crust. Yeah.
It's hard to get a good gluten-free burger crust.
Yeah, the right consistency.
Yeah. Tapioca starch is included.
Yeah.
Tapioca flour. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good to start back into this? Okay. Okay, let's do it. So what we've been doing, just to remind you what we're doing, we've been looking at ways that people in the society try to come to a view of morality or a view of what is right and wrong. In the end, none of it works super well. It runs into some problems really quick, and not even like, you don't have to try very hard to find what's wrong with a lot of these. It's just, of course that wouldn't work. But there's one more, and I'll just tell you what it is. This one is kind of it's kind of a little bit more of a niche, but it's something that you've actually seen played out on a national scale a few times. You call this one determined by the social elite, or dictatorship. This is a view that those who are like the most intelligent, those who are the most qualified, they should be the ones who decide for everybody what is right and wrong. Or those who are at the top of the governmental echelon. They're the ones who decide what is right and wrong. Everything follows the decision of the experts, those in power. Can you guys think of any cases in which this has been played out in history?
North Korea.
This one's still happening.
Yeah.
North Korea. That's not a K. North Korea. We're still waiting to see how that one's going to resolve itself. How about any situations that have been resolved? There's some really big, glaring ones in history.
What about the whole Nazi Hitler and
Hitler's not a bad example. This was more like a subtle manipulation of the entire country than a commandeering, but it's not a bad example at all. You guys ever heard of Joseph Stalin? Joseph Stalin was the dictator of the former Soviet Union. What happened there was one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. He became dictator after Lenin died, and he himself, and those very close to him, those social elites he brought around himself to advise him of what should happen. In order to accomplish whatever goals he had, he and those around him set the moral standards for a country. They were very strict, and often kind of out there. And he ruled with what you would call an iron fist. You guys know that roughly 60 million people out of the 180 million population of Russia were killed during this time. Not 60,000 people, 60 million people were killed during the reign of Joseph Stalin. It's a staggering number. It's a number that I don't think we can comprehend with our minds. I can't even comprehend what a million people looks like, much less 60 million. 60 million people were murdered because of this guy. There were 139 members of the governmentary, I guess what you call a parliament, or kind of the council. He purged 98 of them in order to create, bring all those around him who were going to agree with him perfectly. This is what you call, again, deciding morality by a dictatorship, by the social elite. This has happened a good few times in history now. You guys ever heard of Francis Crick? Francis Crick was a British biologist who had some pretty extreme views. Again, he came to all the conclusions that we've talked about here before. Man is only material. He kind of agreed with Skinner in a lot of ways in saying that the survival of man is very important. But he believed this. He believed that an elite group, the most intelligent human beings on earth, they should, one, decide what the future of humanity looks like. Like, this is where we should be working towards as human beings. Two, begin genetically engineering human beings to reach that goal. Three, stop wasting human talent and resources in keeping the elderly alive. So, you're going to take too much effort to keep alive. You're a liability to the human race. You're cut off. he called it saving the world from senility.
Who is this again?
Francis Crick, very well-known biologist. 4, he believed that that they should structure society by limiting who has children, or how many children you have. So, you don't have good genes, you can't have kids. Your bad genes are going to die off with you. And 5, begin teaching children these principles and these values at a very young age. This is not, this isn't a cautionary tale. He didn't really exist, but this is a guy. This is a guy whose views are widely read and widely studied in schools and colleges today. This is pretty extreme, huh? But again,
So how did I?
struck by lightning.
Just kidding. That was really
Again,
fun.
you take the spiritual element out of a man. You take the God out of a man. You take the value out of an individual, and what is left? Well, you gotta find some way to come up with a system of values, some way to decide what is right and wrong. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, what works for me is what's right. And sometimes it's as extreme as saying, man should be working towards a goal that the elite decide. And everyone who doesn't fit into that category of whatever the elite decide, well, you're out of luck. So, this is a bad idea, right? Why is this a bad idea? For like every reason I just mentioned.
Right.
Every one of his principles seems kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We talked about a guy named Os Guinness last week. He was a Christian, he wrote a lot of interesting books. He commented on this concept of social elite. He said, who's going to control the controllers? Like, if you've got a social elite who decide every single standard that man has to obey, where are the standards for them? If there are no standards for them, what's to stop them from forming a world exactly based on their desires? And that's a really scary thing.
Are cults considered in that category?
Say again?
Cults, would that be?
In a lot of cases. Yeah, because you have one man who, he speaks for God. He's the one who speaks for God, and everyone else has to come to him to hear the word of God. This is how pretty much every cult happens. And that guy can say whatever he wants, and this is the will of God. He can write whatever book he wants. This is how it works. All the women have to marry me because God said so. Yeah, what is going to say? What's to prevent the duplication of this or this? If nobody's controlling the controllers, who is going to choose what is right for humanity on what basis? What is the basis for deciding where humanity should go? There is no good basis. You just, okay, well, how about this way? How about that way? And we've taken out the only basis. The only basis that makes sense, we've taken the thing out, we've thrown it out. The concept that man is intrinsically valuable, we've thrown that out. We've thrown out the concept of objective right and objective wrong. And I think in a lot of ways, where we're at in our modern world, in this society, I think we've, again, in a lot of ways, lost our way morally. I think it hasn't been a super quick fade. I think it's been somewhat of a slow fade. But I think slowly, the standard we started with at the foundation of this nation, the value of the individual, the Christian view of God has been called out over time. I think one of the most jarring illustrations that this is true comes in the concept of legal abortion.
Legal what?
Legal abortion. Because think about it. In most cases, and some of you may not have any experience with debating abortion or talking about this kind of thing, but where's the priority, like these days, where's the priority placed for the abortion?
Me.
Me? It's on me. It's totally on the mother, right? The mother's body. It's her body. She can do what she
Her
wants. It's her life, right? How dare you tell her what she can do with her life? And people tell me this. It is bigotry to tell somebody how they should live. Like, you're telling me how I should live, right? You realize that, right? The whole concept of law is apparently bigotry, because you're telling somebody how they should or shouldn't live. But that's the thing, it's all about the mother. It's all about, well, it's about me. You know, this is my choice, and this is my life, and a baby doesn't fit into my plan. I've been in so many discussions where it comes down to that exactly. Well, you know, you can prove that a fetus is a human being all day long, but it doesn't matter. I've actually gotten to that point in a conversation with some people, because at first you start, well, a fetus is not a human being. And you go into that discussion and you say, well, no, look, I've just proved to you that a fetus is a human being based on the standards of medical science. You say, well, you know what, in the end, it's the mother's choice. It's the mother's body. You can't tell her what she can and can't do. Can you tell a human being that he can or cannot murder another human being? Because you're telling him how he can and can't live. It's the exact same concept, but in the end, it's me. It's my choice. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. And it blows my mind, because we no longer view other human beings as being as valuable as ourselves. We are the end all of our existence. We are the most valuable thing we can make any decision based on. And so, we are the priority. What is a surprise baby in the face of me? Dr. James D. Watson, he won the Nobel Prize in Science some years back. He believed that an infant should be 3 days old before a society considers it alive. Before a society defines an infant, not a fetus, an infant, like a born infant, should be 3 days born before society defines it as a human being,
Who said that?
as a person. Dr. James D. Watson, he won the Nobel Prize in Science. He said that this would give, quote, adequate time to decide whether or not to let the infant live. Based on what? Like, why 3 days? This is a number? Why is this even a question? When did this even become part of the conversation? The only reason you would say, well, let's give it 3 days, is just so the mother can have plenty of time to decide whether she really wants the responsibility of raising another human being. And if she decides no, then tough luck, child. You die, because your mother, who brought you into the world, doesn't want to take care of you. I don't know. I get a little passionate about this, but I think all of us should to some degree or another, because this is crazy. There was a philosophy professor at Australian National University. This guy's still around, Michael Toomey. And he says a human being has no right to live unless they are, quote, self-conscious. Now, he can't define what it means to be self-conscious. It's just the state. You've got to be self-conscious. Can't say exactly what it means, but you've got to be self-conscious. And according to him, some human beings and most babies are not self-conscious, and therefore they are not human beings, and therefore it doesn't matter if you kill them or not. He says there are some animals that are self-conscious. What I want to know is how we got to the point where killing babies is fine, because they're not self-conscious things, but killing some animals that's wrong, because they're self-conscious, based on some arbitrary standard we gave it. It's crazy to me that we got to this point. And not even the point where it's in some fringe areas acceptable. Like, this is an idea that I found in the fringe, and a very small minority has this view. It's becoming the social justice thing now. The people who fight for the life of a baby are now the oppressors. You realize that? Those who are saying, you can't kill a baby, they're the ones who are oppressing the mothers. And it's the social justice that says the mother should be able to choose. How dare you come against her freedom? That's crazy. I read a book recently that talked about how our society we're flying upside down, and we don't even know it. He talked about a pilot that he knew that was doing some speed tests in like a ridiculously fast jet. And this pilot was doing barrel rolls, essentially. Not a barrel roll. I don't know what it's actually called. Corkscrew, I don't know, whatever. She was spinning like this. And at one point, she came out of the spin and she was flying. And it took her about 10 seconds to realize that she was completely upside down, because she had gone spinning so many times that she didn't even realize. And finally, it took her a minute to orient herself. Wait, the sky is down and the ground is up. He makes this point to say that we've gotten to a place in our society where we're flying upside down and we have no idea. We've lost all basis from which to know what is right and wrong. And we're seeing the effects of it more and more. When those who fight for the life of a child are the oppressors in the situation, something's really, really wrong. So this is all of this right here. Everything we've talked about up to this point. This is morality in Western thought. This is predominantly where you land. You're going to land somewhere in here. There are some weirder places. There's some stuff that gets really, really heady. You talk about secular positivism and stuff like that. But it really, you can land in one of these categories. I like that we have don't care up there, because I wouldn't have thought of that one. But you're going to land somewhere in here in Western thought. If you don't have a Christian view, and you're trying to find some way to come up with the fact, or some way to define what is right and wrong, you're going to land somewhere in that spot.
Western what?
Western philosophy.
What is that supposed to
Well, you have Christian thought, and then predominantly what you have is Western philosophy, Western evolutionary philosophy for the most part, and then Eastern religion.
okay.
And it's a simplification, but you can generally categorize the three very different schools of thought into those three spots. So we just looked at Western thought, and now, if you guys are ready, we're going to look, and this won't take as long, because we're already nearing the end. We're going to look quickly at Eastern religion in relation to morality. Okay? So I'm going to erase this real quick. You guys are all right with that? If you're not, I already started. So. Sorry. Okay, in Eastern religion, what you find is, just like you have a lot of trouble coming up with any kind of form of value in Eastern religions, you have a lot of trouble coming up with any kind of concept of morality. You guys ever heard of Taoism? Wait. No. That's it. I'll do it the first time. Taoism, you've heard of this? You've heard of the yin and the yang, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, that's the Taoism thing, so I get this right. And then we've got a circle here, that's all filled in. And then we've got a circle here, and everything else is going to be filled in. I really don't want to have to draw all this stuff. So, did that work? Okay. Taoism is the basic belief that you can't draw any line between right and wrong. It's a view that it started in China, possibly as early as like 500 BC or so. And it's the goal of bringing people into the Tao, the way, they call it. And there's no way, the whole idea of Taoism is it shows people the way, but you can't ever actually know the way. So it's like, ooh. So the whole concept of yin and yang here, this is their concept of good and evil. Okay? So you've got the yin, which is this over here, and the yin represents the male, the positive, the light, the good, summer, the active. This is the yin. Then you've got the yang. The yang is the opposite. It's the female, the negative, evil, darkness, death, winter, and passive. Now, the view here is that yin and yang are opposites. Just as we would say good and evil are opposites, right? The problem is they say, however, they're made of the same stuff. They're opposites, but they're really the same at a deeper level. And to illustrate this, they have these little dots on either side here. And they say, there's yin, and it's all that is good. But in all yin, there is yang. In all good, there is evil. Because really, in the depth of the thing, they're the same stuff. And there's yang, the evil. And in all yang, and all evil, there is good. because of the depth of yang, it's really the same stuff. Now, does this make sense?
Yeah.
It's not really something you can wrap your head around. That's the thing about Eastern religions, is that I found that you look at the philosophies and you try to wrap your head around it, there's a point where you just go, that sounds so neat, that statement, but I can't understand it at all. There's no, there's a point where it just kind of leaves logic sitting, like it leaves reason sitting to the side, just, okay, I've achieved nirvana. Yeah, but is there a distinction between right and wrong in your view? Because to me, something in me says loving a child and murdering a child are very different. I can't buy this, because there really is no, there can't be a standard for right and wrong, because they're just the same thing in the end. Nothing really matters. There was a statement made by an Eastern religious master who said, in the material world we calculate, saying this is good, this is bad, but actually nothing is good and nothing is bad, it is all an illusion. In illusion, where is the goodness or badness? Illusion is illusion. Again, it's the mystical hand waving. There can't be good or there can't be bad. It's all the same stuff. Same illusory stuff. Just like there can't be value, because we're all made of the same God stuff. There can't be good or evil, because again, it's all made of the same stuff. We talked about Hinduism, because again, this is God stuff. Same exact problem. To illustrate this quickly, their goddess of good and evil, of construction and destruction, is Kali, K-A-L-I. The goddess of good and evil, which is weird, because in a lot of religions you have the god of good and like the god of evil. One represents one, the other represents the other. She's the goddess of good and evil. She represents, she's displayed as the loving mother, but also of the cruel war master. And most depictions of her, she's really angry looking. She has swords, and she's sitting on the decapitated head of her husband. But again, this is the goddess of good, also the goddess of evil. It's meant to illustrate the whole concept, because it's a contradiction, obviously.
What's her name?
Kali. Kali is a contradiction. Because in the end, for the Hindu religion, it's all the same God stuff. Just like a human being is God stuff, and a garbage can is God stuff, and the ocean is God stuff, and rocks are God stuff, and paper cups God stuff, good is God stuff, and evil is God stuff. It's just the same stuff. And once again, something in me just says this can't be right. If cruelty and non-cruelty are just the same. And if it is right, then there's almost no point in thinking about it, because it's not something you can logically understand. And so, finally, look at Zen Buddhism. And we are nearing the end here, I promise. But the same issues. Spiritual master, his name is Young Men. He said, if you want to get the plain truth, be not concerned with right and wrong. The conflict between right and wrong is the sickness of the mind. So it's because we are messed up individuals that we even think in terms of right and wrong. You guys ever heard of Dostoevsky? There's a Russian writer. Really brilliant guy. He wrote The Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment. Those were his two big works. Very intelligent guy. And he wrote something called The Possessed. And he had an illustration in it in which he wanted to show the moral problem that comes from this kind of pantheistic belief. Because all these things fall into pantheism, which we talked about last week. The view that everything is God's stuff. There are many forms of God. Again, you just have a pantheistic belief. He wrote this in his work, The Possessed. And this was a conversation between two individuals. And one said to the other, he said, everything is good. The other guy said, everything? The first man said, everything. Man is unhappy because he doesn't know he's happy. That's the only reason. So the guy said, so it's good then that people die of hunger, or that somebody may abuse or rape a little girl. And the first said, it's good. He said, and if someone breaks open that man's skull for the girl, that's good too. And if someone doesn't break his skull, it's equally good. It's all good. Everything is good. You see what's being expressed there, because this is, again, this is a simple expression of the views you find in pantheism. Because it's all the same stuff. It's either an illusion, or it's all God's stuff. Or it's all yin and yang, which are the same thing in the end. You say everything's good. Hanging out with your family is good. Someone abusing a little girl is good. Someone killing the guy who abused a little girl is equally good. And if he doesn't do that, well, that's good too. So everything is good. Because everything is the same. What happens is good. You're not happy because you don't know you're happy. And if, I guess you could say, if everything is good, you might as well flip it around, right? You say everything is bad. Funny how that works. So, a quick summary as we start to wrap up here. Whether you say in Western evolutionary thought that we're just a bunch of molecules sprung up from a cosmic accident, or that we're all God stuff, or that everything is an illusion, you face the same problem, which is the fact that we have no basis from which to decide what is right and what is wrong. And when you have no basis, you just grasp at straws until you come up with some arbitrary conclusion. And that, as we found, leads to serious problems, whether it's a completely unfulfilled life that is the end of hedonism, or the kind of genocide you find in morality being decided by the social elite. They all face the same problem. No matter what evil is done to an individual who holds these things, they have no basis to decide, or no basis to feel that it's evil. They feel that it's evil, they feel that it's wrong, but they have no basis to evaluate it. So, very quickly, as we close out, what about Christianity? I said we'd get there, and we're finally getting there. What about Christianity? What decides what is right and good, or what is wrong and evil in the Christian view?
God's ordained.
God's ordained, or how about God's laws?
Yeah,
God's laws. The 614 of them you find in the Old Testament. God's laws decide what is right and good. Okay. Why does God give us the laws he gives us? Just guys, did God decide on arbitrary laws, just like we decide on arbitrary things to come up with our own form of morality? Did he just decide?
He created us.
He created us, yeah. But why does he give us the laws he tells us? How about this? Why does a parent give his child the laws he gives them, the rules he gives them? Don't touch the oven,
Yeah.
right? Why does the parent say don't touch the oven? Because the parent knows the child's hand, how that works, how skin works, knows that the oven is hot, understands heat. The child has no idea about this stuff. No conception at all. The parent does. He says don't touch the oven. What's that born out of? It's born out of a higher understanding than the child. And it's born out of a desire for the highest good for the child, right? Interesting. I think we have this conception, and I really love to talk about this as well, but we have this conception in Christianity and even in like secular views of God and Christianity that God tells us what to do just because I said so. You better listen to me because I'm your father. Right? We have this view that it's arbitrary somehow. And God says, do this, I'm just giving you some laws, and that's just the way they are, so do it because I said so. Should we do it because God says so? Yes. But why does he do it? Is God an arbitrary God? Does he do stuff for no reason?
Because he knows best of how we live.
Yeah. God knows best. Just like the parent knows best. Most of the time.
Ah,
Now, why does God know best?
Because he created us.
Because he created us. I know we've all of you guys have said this at different period points in the I'm just trying to connect the dots here. Because he created us. So to illustrate this very quickly, when I take my car to my Uncle Kenny, who is a mechanic, and he says, you need to do this thing with your car. You need to buy this part, or whatever. Why do I listen to him? Because he knows exactly the way a car works. And he knows how the car is designed, and how it's supposed to work, and what it needs in order to function correctly. Because the car has a design. And with every design,
There's a creator.
with every design, there is a designer. That's a different thing. With every design, there is, or how about there are, design requirements. So a design requirement of a vehicle is, for most of them anyways, it runs off gasoline. My car runs off gasoline. That is a design requirement. I put gasoline into the tank and it will function. And I always use this example. If I decide one day to pour orange juice into my tank, is it going to work? Why not?
a little bit maybe.
Maybe, I don't know, actually. I haven't gone to the lengths to actually try this to illustrate my point. So, call me out, Harry. Is it going to work?
Probably not.
It's not. I almost guarantee you it's not going to work. Why not? Because it wasn't designed to run off gasoline. Yeah. I listen to the opinion because he knows how it's designed. God knows best. Because he created us, we are a design. And with every design, there are design requirements. In other words, because we are designed, there are certain ways in which we live that are good for us, just by nature. By the nature of our design, there are ways to live that are good and functional and work for us. And there are other ways to live that are going to just really mess us up. So, how about this? Why is it wrong to steal? Don't say because God said so. It's true, but why did God say so?
It's not loving.
Okay, yeah. So we
The
picture.
person you steal from, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's true. Because other human beings have value, right? You're not the only person in existence. You're not the only one that matters. What you're doing is you're hurting another person. You're hurting another person so you can gain something. You're defacing your own conscience. You're hurting yourself while you hurt them. This is something that is naturally just bad for us to do. And God says, don't steal. You shouldn't do this. Why? Because I designed you a certain way. And that's going to hurt you. And it's going to hurt everyone else involved. With this, why is it wrong to murder? Because you're killing another human being that has as much value as you do. It's going to really hurt you. Let me tell you something. People who have murdered other people, I'm not talking about even those who have been in like conflict situations and have were justified in killing another person are traumatized from that. It's traumatizing to kill a person. Those who murder are messed up for life in many cases. It hurts them. Who else does it hurt? The person they murdered, everybody close to them. The guy who murders another guy to steal his wallet has taken the father away from a family. Don't murder. I told you to? No, because God designed us in a certain way, and this is just naturally stupid. Really, when you look at any other way of living aside from the way God told us to live, it's dumb. It's unintelligent. It's selfish, short-sighted. You know, you can go through any one of these here. Why does God say do this? Why does God say do that? But all of them come down to the fact that He knows best because He made us. And we have a design. And that design has requirements, and He knows what those requirements are. So He says, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, because He just knows how we work. And this is where Christian morality comes from. I really love taking it deeper than God's law, or because God said so. Because to me, if you stop it there, it ends up being and feeling arbitrary. And I think that's turned a lot of people off Christianity. The fact is, God is not arbitrary, and He has a really good reason for everything He does. A really good reason. I think it's really cool. So any questions as we close out here? Any thoughts, questions?
What was the name of the author of the book, The Possessed?
Dostoevsky.
That really doesn't help.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have the Brothers Karamazov right there. He's really heady, and reading his stuff is like, it's like chewing grass and trying to digest it. You can, but it's hard. Any other questions or thoughts? No? Okay. Then I'm going to pray. I'm going to close. I'm only 1 minute late. 7:31. Like, we got a break in, too. God, thank you again that Christianity is reasonable. And thank you that you're not arbitrary, Father, that you love us so much, that you care about us so much, and that you want what's best for us so much, that you've clearly laid out the way for us to live. You've showed us the way, and that it makes sense. You haven't just dropped it on us and said, because I told you to, but you've showed us why, and you've told us why, and it makes sense, God. I'm so grateful for that. So we love you, Father, and thank you that we had this wonderful time this night. I pray we continue having a great time in this meeting, and continue to help me learn and help these guys learn. Obviously go deeper into your word and your truth. Lord, amen. We are done.